Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. You're going to see me doing this a lot today, because I think it's officially out of control. I think I'm actually going to do just a clean shave and let it grow back in time for TwitchCon. Like, let it grow back enough in time for TwitchCon. Just going to go full baby face on this one. But anyway, I don't have anything in particular to talk about here at the beginning of the video, other than a reminder that the live letter number 39 will be taking place this Friday. Just for anyone who's wondering if I'll be doing a live translation, Marco will be unavailable. He's working on his final year in Japan, and so he's like mega packed with traveling and work stuff and school stuff, so it's all piling up. So he's unavailable to do it. Luckily, these live letters are kind of the live letters where they just give us a bunch of PowerPoint slides, maybe a few videos. So a lot of it's very visual, and a lot of it does have English context. It's just you miss the things that he says in between on the slides, which we usually have other people for anyway. Unfortunately, since I won't have the translation, I might just live stream at that time and be like, no translation, just watching live letter. Because, I don't know, I'm going to be up at that time anyway, and I don't know anyone else is doing a live translation. So that's the one big thing that I want to say here at the beginning. There will not be a live translation, but I will still be live, and if anyone can translate it in the chat, that's perfectly welcome as well. I might throw them like a privilege just for the day if I see someone translating like everything that happens, just so they stand out in the chat, and then we can write that down and whatnot. But anyway, just wanted to do that real quick, and now I'm gonna get into the Q&A. So let's get started. Oh, and sorry, not this Friday, next Friday. For some reason, I thought that today was like the 24th or something like that I'm recording this. It's the 17th. I'm a week ahead of schedule. That being said, watch what happens with YouTube magic. Boop. But anyway, first question. Hey, Haps, thanks for answering my mentor question last week, and sorry for murdering your comment section if it ends up happening. No worries. Anyway, on to the question. If you were to raid as a tank, healer, or caster, which job in each would you play? I feel like we already know your answer for ranged physical, and you currently raid as monk, so melee's definitely answered already. For tank, I'd definitely go with paladin. It's close because I'd kind of like to play warrior as well if I had to pick one. I really like warrior's personal capabilities of handling themselves between Holmgang, Inner Beast, Rampart, Raw, and Twitch. I love their way to self-sustain. Even if they're not known for their raid utility, their ability to basically always have a defensive cooldown for everything is very tantalizing to me. That, and I just like big axes, and I cannot lie. Healer, probably White Mage. Astro would probably be my favorite if I was more confident as a healer, but as someone who's not, White Mage to me is a lot more direct. Like, when I see a situation, I kind of already know when I think of White Mage spells, like, what I would probably do there. Astro is a little bit less for me, and I feel like as an inexperienced healer, focusing on the cards and on the healing, I might get distracted. I can't say that for certain. Maybe I'd be fine, but just off the top of my head, that's what I'm thinking. And for caster, I'd probably go Red Mage. Black Mage is close for me because I really like the numbers that you get on Black Mage, but I love the mobility of Red Mage. And on top of that, being the hero that reses people, and I've just been in so many parties where Red Mage doesn't res people, and I always say, man, if I was the Red Mage, I would be resing immediately. And I would just want to be Red Mage just because I've had that experience way too often. So those are the answers for each of them. Number 2, good morning. It's afternoon now, but you know what? It'll be morning when you see this video tomorrow. Good morning to you as well. SE mentioned they will never again put a high MPG reward like Fenrir. Nothing worth $1 million. Specifically, nothing worth $1 million. But if the Gold Saucer doesn't have a high MPG reward worth grinding, doesn't that kill the attraction of doing it? The important thing is having things that are more obtainable in not short play periods, but shorter than what would generally be expected of somebody to get 1 million MGP. So things that are like 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, which they've added in the forms of other mounts. Glamour rewards that are anywhere from like 40,000 to 100,000. Those are good areas to have them in. The million, I do think that at some point we should get another 1 million reward. I think that some people really enjoy having that super, what feels like unattainable thing, and when they complete it, they kind of stand out, and it creates that sense of, wow, you actually got that. But with the yearly event, it doesn't even really have that feel anymore, so I think you'd need to go even higher than that to get that same feeling. I think they could do with another 1 million at some point, with the ease of getting MGP being a lot greater now, especially because of the yearly event. But I can understand why you kind of do the micro rewards in a sense, where people don't feel like they have to obsess with the Gold Saucer to obtain them. It gets them going daily. It gets them participating in some of the things like the challenge log. But I think ultimately Gold Saucer is just kind of meh in terms of sustainability as a whole. Because, I mean, Chocobo Racing, few people do it. Not really many. Lords of Dominion, complete flop, and no Blitzball. Hey! Extra, wins 4.1 coming. October 10th is going to be my guess. All right, number 3. Hey, how's it going? It's going alright. How you doing? You doing alright? Yeah, he's doing alright. My question is, what gripes, frustrations do you have with a large amount of the player base, or what is one you think you want the average player to do differently? Mine would be DPS classes who single target in big pulls instead of using their AoE skills. For some reason, I noticed Bards doing this. For Bards, it's a little different because you're gonna notice dots going up. But a lot of the times, getting dots up on multiple targets is a good option. Mage's Ballad has an AoE proc in the form of Rain of Death. So if you can get rolling dots on 2 or 3 targets, and then maintain it with Iron Jaws, and then every time you get a proc, use Rain of Death, it adds up over the course of a large pull. It's just not as bursty as you may want it to be. Like, other classes can just pour AoE damage out immediately. For Bards, it's almost like a slow setup, and it can look weird if you're not overly familiar with the way the job works, but it's super satisfying when you do actually get it working. I'd say that is kind of a big thing, but for one gripe or frustration I have with a large amount of people, it's just the unwillingness to kind of take good advice. You know, sometimes it's people who are adverse to all advice. That's the one thing. And I don't think that's too amazingly common, but it's more common than I wish it was. You know, I've gone into dungeons where I have the Black Mage who has Fire 3 and Blizzard 3, and those are all he's casting. He just has Fire 3, Fire 3, Fire 3, Blizzard 3, Blizzard 3, Blizzard 3, and he's transposing. He's not even just using them to switch forms. And I've tried to do that thing, and I've had mixed results with that exact scenario, where I tell the guy, hey, just so you know, Fire 3 and Blizzard 3 are only used to switch forms, or if you get a proc on Fire 3. It changes a little bit later. There's going to be more to learn, but, you know, I'm trying to be nice about it, because I've seen other people, and I'll type all this crazy thing out. I'm trying to do the whole spiel so it's as nice as possible. And I've gotten utter silence and shut the fuck up. I've gotten both scenarios, and so... I mean, what is there really to do at that point? You know, what can you do? There's nothing. But that's it. That's the one thing that I wish. That's my one gripe or frustration. All right, number 4. Hello. Hello. I cut the hello off the top. My bad. Why the bloody crikey does an attack called Armor Crush have anything to do with extending the duration of a skill speed modifier? You know, a lot of people have said they should switch the name of or the effects of Armor Crush and Dancing Edge, because Dancing Edge you could understand extending it. Well, you don't even have Dancing Edge anymore. Let me rephrase. Back in the day, that's what they used to say. With Shadowfang, you have the dot. With Aeolian, it's just because they don't want to put one on Aeolian and they wanted to just have Shadowfang. That's it. I don't like it either. I don't like the naming convention there. Back when we had Dancing Edge, it would have made sense to switch them. We don't have Dancing Edge anymore. So where do you throw it? Do you throw it on Aeolian? That's kind of OP, because then you literally never need to maintain it. Do you throw it on Shadowfang as a third effect? I don't think so. Do you throw it on Armor Crush? Well, you got no options left at this point, so maybe renaming the skill is the better decision as opposed to switching it with other things, because, yeah, Armor Crush is kind of a silly name for something with that. That wasn't even the main question. My main question is, do you think big boys and girls at Square Enix should ever add some kind of mega endgame for Crafters Gatherers, like how Fishers have Big Fishing and the Feast of Famine quest? I know the End of Heaven's where they keep Crafters Gathering the glowing blessed tools, so I'm thinking something a little more structured. So, ultimately, I don't know that they should. It seems like a good idea on paper, but it creates a lot of concerns over what their ultimate endgame actually is. Because if it is something like the fishing stuff, it's almost like irrelevant. Fishing, kind of the whole point is to fish everything up, and then obviously you have materials to create foods with. But for crafting, you're already, like, are you just making items that are only for these specific quests, these crazy items for this crazy quest? How long does that really last? You know, like the blessed tools or the loosest tools or things like that, those kind of become the end game, is getting that, or getting the full pentamelded gear sets for all your crafters. I feel like it doesn't apply the same on fishing as it does for crafters. Other gatherers also, you have the other achievements with the tools, with the other tools you can get for them, and maybe they could use something similar to what fishing has, but it's very different the way that fishing works from all the other options there. So I don't really know that I can say, yes, they should. It's going to end up being a grind fest like the other ones, or it's being RNG fest like, you know, Big Fish ends up being. So, I don't know. I don't think it's a particularly good idea. Alright, number 5. Sup, Haps? What's up? Hope your week's been fantastic. It's been alright. I had a kind of a rut towards the end of the week where I really didn't make any videos, and I took a day off from streaming. Just, I was tired and exhausted, and it wasn't the greatest week for me. But, you know, otherwise, you know, I did get to have ramen and see some friends, and start watching The Defenders and a few other things. So there's some positives there. I have a bonus of, oh, I know, a button that when pressed will allow you to deliver a vengeance on those who keep asking for Blitzball. You're my hero. 6, and it fell through their family for 6 generations. You're a man after my own heart. 1, why do people keep coming to you with those? I'm having a hard time wanting to play the game questions. I don't know. Like, I've answered it a million times, and I mean, people don't see every single episode of Mondays, but it's like, at that point, you just be disciplined and understand, maybe I should just play a different game. I don't know. 2, so you prefer Thornton over Shinryu as far as music is concerned, but what about Final Steps Nidhogg? Final Steps Nidhogg, I mean, the music there is great, but I still would prefer Thornton over it. It's just that Dragon Song in that fight is a great song, kind of like how Answers is a great song in Turn 13, and I hope it's the song that plays during Super Savage. That being said, I don't really immediately affiliate Dragon Song with Nidhogg. It just happened to be the song they put to him. That's how I feel at the very least. Similar to the way Answers, while I do consider that Bahamut's theme, putting it over the fight, it was a good song on its own. I don't really affiliate it with it being that fight's song, if that makes sense. And 3, who do I have to beat down with a folding metal chair to get a decent, let alone good superhero MMO? I mean, what's it called was okay. What's the DC one called? That was okay for a while. It just wasn't good long term. I don't know, man. If you, the closest thing you're gonna get to, you know, it's a really good superhero game. What's that Marvel game that's like Diablo? Whatever that's called. I think it's called Marvel Heroes or something like that. It's not an MMO, but it's pretty damn good. So I would recommend playing that, because I actually think that game's really impressive, and I'd like to put more time into it if possible. But I won't, so I don't know why I'm saying this. Alright, number 6. Hey, guy. You again. I've been told that I've been playing Dark Knight wrong. I typically do the Unmend to start a pull and then Unleash to get the group as I run in. I have a player say I should Abyssal Drain instead of Unleash. Yeah, Abyssal Drain is a lot more usable now than it used to be. I'm not in a super experienced Dark Knight, but that's what most people prefer Abyssal Drain over Unleash nowadays. And yeah, if you have the Dark Arts for it, then you go nuts with it. But yeah, I mean, I see Dark Knights doing that. I see Dark Knights doing the Abyssal Drain thing. So it's not a Dark Knight player. It's only level 60. I'm just gonna say, yeah, listen to them. Just listen to them. All right, number 7. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. I don't know why I do that. First time askers have a bonus of the best gear for an alt character of your choice. Hey, I like it. Easy question, but I want to know, why do you hate Blitzball so much? I personally love and can remember hours spending not only getting Wakka's weapon, but just for the fun of it. Do you hate it because you hated the grind of it, or it's simply not fun? It wasn't fun. It was super... Okay, so here's the thing. Blitzball, super abusable. But more importantly, it just wasn't very interactive. Every fight came down to pretty much the exact same AI playing out the exact same way. And at that point, it's like, why am I even playing this? You know, because I want Wakka's weapon? Yeah, when you put something like Wakka's weapon at the end of it all, and you put like rewards like that at the end of it all, great. In an MMO setting, you can't do that. So people just go, well, there's no stupid ultimate weapon for me to get from this, so I'm not going to waste my fucking time on it. And at that point, you've wasted so many of the devs' resources for something people said, I'll never play another game if they add Blitzball to this, when you're a fucking liar, and you're going to stop playing it in a week, and you're going to complain that they made it. So don't lie. Just be honest with yourself. It's a waste of time. Alright, number 8. Hello, Mr. Happy. First time bonus question. Red Mage spoiler. I'm not even going to bother with that. I don't care about Red Mage spoilers. I just came back to the game 2.5 weeks ago, so apologies if this question was already asked. I did my Red Mage level 68 quest and was surprised by the enemy for Arya was called Lilith. What's even more interesting is that Arya's hair turned red in one of the cutscenes. Wondering if it's the same Lilith from... It's not going to be the same Lilith. There's no relation there. I mean, it's the same name, but the Lilith is based on I don't want to say mythology because I don't know what mythology it's based off of, or demonology in the case of that name, but it's based on something that exists already. So there's Liliths in tons of Final Fantasy games. They're not immediately related to each other, although they may share an initial theme that 11 used as the same base. That's the best way I can think to put it. All right, number 9. Hi, Haps. Hi. I did it again. Not a 14 or gaming related question, but do you have any advice or tips for someone that is going to their first convention? Oof, I got a laundry list of these. I'll be going to KupoCon. Hey, I'll see you there. And it'll be my first convention. Quite excited at the same time. I have no idea what to expect. I know hygiene is quite important in events like these, but I'd love to hear your advice. So it's just saying hygiene is important is kind of an understatement. KuboCon is a very small convention, so any of your typical convention-going things that you should do are, like, cut back, like, tenfold. Because KuboCon is not, like, PAX West, or there's tens of thousands of people, or E3, where there's tens of thousands of people. It's just not comparable on that nature. That being said, one thing I always did is I bring hand sanitizer, and every time I shake someone's hand or touch a game controller or something like that, hand sanitizer. It's not that you don't think the other person's clean and you don't make a prejudgment, you just do it for everyone, because that way you're not getting anyone else sick, and you're making sure that any germs that were on you aren't staying on you, because then if you wipe your face or your eyes or something and the germ gets inside you, it's gonna be a bad time. Other than that, shower in the morning and the evening, and on top of that, and it's all just trying to avoid getting sick and being presentable to some degree. Other than that, it's like, KuboCon's not going to have lines. KuboCon's going to be very much event, and you'll probably participate in all of them. And then you might spend some time over at the vendor station or at one of the panels or something like that. That being said, then it's about schedule. Get a schedule, pick what you want to go to, and stick to it. Don't let things like pull you away from those things that you want it to do. But KuboCon is going to be easy for you, man. I wouldn't even be concerned about any of the stuff there, other than maybe the hand sanitizer stuff, because KuboCon's much smaller scale than everything else. And I'll see you there. All right, number 10. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hello. First time asking a question, so I have an anti-Blitzball cannon. It's so powerful, it removes Blitzball from existence. You guys are getting better at this. Anyway, I'm currently creating a 14-themed Card Against Humanity deck. I've seen a few of those, actually. I think we had one for the people who are on Dream, actually, as well. I was wondering if it'd be all right to use you in one of the calls. It would be a Mr. Happy is proud to present blank as this week's podcast guest. Oh, man. I know some of the other Cards Against Humanity stuff, and that could... I mean, if it's all good... if it's all in good fun, I suppose, for the blank cards. I mean, you really don't need to ask my permission for that, because you're not selling Cards Against Humanity stuff. You're not selling the pack or anything, so it's just something you're going to be using and you're going to share with your friends. It's like, whatever. Yeah, trust me, I know how Cards Against Humanity works. Yeah, it's whatever. I mean, you could just go for it, yeah. Alright, number 11. Greetings and salutations, Mr. Happy. Greetings and salutations to you too. I've been watching your guide since Garuda Extreme, but first time posters have a bonus of leveling. I've been leveling my culinary decent, so have some sand. I like sand. Money. As for my question, one of our new members recently hit 70 and wants to get into the raid scene as Samurai. As a tank main, my best melee DPS is a warrior. What sort of tips would you give a new melee DPS? So melee DPS is one of the biggest things that people do wrong, and I think Momo just made a guide for it recently. He's a big melee DPS guy. He's been putting guides out for a lot of the different melees. Is melee uptime. A lot of times when you're new to the raid scene, and this happened to me, I think it's happened to most people the first time they've raided in any game, you do something, you play too safe. It's a very common thing to do to get the mechanic down right, and as such, you tend to lose DPS. Uptime meaning the time that you are actively attacking an enemy. It could be the boss, it could be an ad, it doesn't matter, but you want to maximize that, whether that's saving a gap closer, or trying to move as little as possible to dodge a mechanic, or staying in melee range to dodge a mechanic. Working on that specific thing is one big thing that will help a lot. You gotta try to learn to stay in melee range as best as possible while still dodging and doing the mechanics properly. You don't want to run halfway across the arena because it was the safe thing to do. I don't know why there's 3 quotes there, but there is. The safe thing to do. And then you basically, your DPS just tanks because you're not doing anything. That happened to me when I first played Ninja in 2.4, because it was my first time actually raiding as a melee. And I did that and it was not great. So I would say that's going to be number 1, is try to tell him to work on his melee uptime. Number 12. Hey, Haps, I'm running out of segues to my question roulettes. So here you go. It's alright. I'll just take a sip of coffee for your segue. Doesn't make any sense. That's good stuff. Alright, so with 4.1, my opinion on Octopath. Oh, dude, I loved Octopath. You know what? I'm going to take that just because it's Octopath Traveler. Okay. My opinion on Octopath Traveler. What would it be bad if the game would be called Final Fantasy 16? Well, it's nothing like... If you go from Final Fantasy 15 graphics to this, yes, it would be awful. But a lot of people have said that they would take the same lighting style and same shading and same gameplay and apply it to like a Final Fantasy 6 remake, or like a Final Fantasy, or like an Ivalice related game. No, I think it should exist in its own regard. I think Tokyo RPG Factory should stay as far away from the Final Fantasy franchise name as possible. Not because I'm not sorry, that's not Tokyo RPG Factory. That's Lost Sphere. The team that made Bravely Default, whose name I don't know off the top of my head, who's the one who made Octopath Traveler, they should stay as far away from it as possible. Bravely Default, very clearly inspired by certain Final Fantasy titles, but it still existed in its own right. And I think that they need to stick to that. It's the same message I have for Tokyo RPG Factory, but they need to make their own franchises and their own games, and Square Enix needs to be utilizing those, not utilizing the Final Fantasy franchise, which a lot of the times it feels like the Final Fantasy name just gets thrown on something because they decided it was good to throw it on it. And that's it. It could be named anything else, but they throw the Final Fantasy name on it because Final Fantasy franchise name is popular. I like that the Bravely Default team stood on its own with Bravely Default, even if it was heavily inspired by Final Fantasy. It says Silicon Studio would be the name according to my Twitch chat, and I think they should continue to do that with Octopath Traveler. Obviously, it shouldn't be called Octopath Traveler when they give it an official name, but not Final Fantasy. All right, number 13. Hey, Haps, another quick question from South Jersey. The better half, some would say, depending on what part of South Jersey, because if you go to the shore, well, yeah. While I appreciate it when gear is shared between jobs, thus saving time and effort, this can cause problems with the melds. Yep. This can be problematic. I mean, Black Mage, I believe spell speed is still #1 choice, but Black Mages share gear with summoners and Red Mages, and I'm currently having fun leveling. Red Mage really does not need spell speed. A lot of the times it also comes down to you don't need the exact same piece. It's not always BIS for the exact same piece, but in the few cases that it is, yeah. I mean, the gear system in general could use a bit of revamping, specifically for the fact that we have multiple jobs. And we're already seeing that they're working on revamping the glamour system. But the gear system itself could indeed still use it. I mean, if anything, it increases the amount of material you can use, and that comes out of the market, and that maybe the motivation to put it into the market in the first place. So I'm kind of okay with the idea of a piece basically having different melds per job, which seems like that's what you kind of want. And I think that they should be trying to make gear more flexible like that for a game that tries to be as flexible as it is, but still has these micro restrictions like the one you're naming here. So yeah, I think that they could do something like that in the future, and that it would be beneficial to the game as a whole. All right, let's see. Reply number 14. That means question number 14. Howl, Senor Felice. Howl to you too. It's H-A-L-L-O. So yeah. It's been about 2 months since Stormveld's launch. Is it still considered bad etiquette to discuss story elements from it? In shout chat, I'd say it's bad etiquette. That's about it. What do you think? What do you think the 4.1 through 4.5, maybe 4.7 main story quest patches will be focused around the rebuilding of the of Alamigo and Doma's governments, which may or may not be interesting, and also the repelling of the return armies and whatever the hell happens with the Garleans. But I think we're going to see a lot more political side of things going into the next few patches. What would you like to see happen to Yatsuyu and Fordola? Fordola's something insane's gonna happen with Fordola. I think Ethis and I had this discussion where she's being put away in jail, but because of her unique powers, thanks to what happened to her in the main scenario, I think something insane is going to happen with Fordola, and the fact that she's not dead is a very telling thing. Yatsuyu, I don't know. I have a feeling that Yatsuyu is not someone who can be made good, as much as you kind of see her almost succumbing to her own inner pain at some point. But at the same time, I mean, she's alive and she's saved by her enemy. I don't know, does that change her? I'd like to see almost a redemption story for her, but at the same time, it kind of takes away from what makes Yatsuyu Yatsuyu, and I think that would be kind of boring and cliche a little bit. Are there any hanging plot threads you would like to have addressed? I just want to see more Estinian. I want to know more about what he is doing in particular, not just shadowing the Warrior of Light. So it's not really a hanging thread, but it's something that's there and it's not explored a lot. It's just nice to see. And due to us not knowing the build up for the next expansion, where do you think we're headed next and why? That's a tough one, because I don't want to believe we're going to exactly assault Garlemald, but do we? I mean, what becomes the other option? I mean, there's Meracidia to the south, there's the islands to the north of Aldenard, there's the New World, there's the moon, which I still like to give Eth the shit for, and then there's I guess the inner parts. I guess you don't have to go all the way to Garlemald, but there are parts on the continent of Garlemald that Garlemald sits on, which name is I think it's Ilsabard. Yeah, there's the southern part of Ilsabard, which could be explorable. There's a lot of options. It's a question of what's really worth going to and why. And again, you say we don't know the setup, so hard to make a prediction. But we know there's still life on Meracidia. It's just that we did 2 expansions worth of dragons. I'm good for now. All right, number 15. Oh man, Haps. Oh man, it's Kiltastic Jones, and you know what's funny? I actually deliberately pulled up the list of sponsors to say it in the beginning this week because he's one of the sponsors, and then I didn't do it. So we're doing it at the end of the video. It's still in the video. It's just at the end. On this week's question, have you ever considered going to your fellow streamers, YouTubers to build a sort of conglomerate? No, not really, because we all have our own channels, and it's very difficult to do this whole conglomerate channel thing. Dream Network was kind of originally supposed to be the conglomerate Twitch channel, and it didn't pan out. It's very difficult getting schedules aligned for stuff like that. So it's why we do work together sometimes, whether it be on State of the Realm, or Ethos and I have done a few collaboration lore videos and stuff like that. But I don't think ultimately it's to the benefit of the community, but to the benefit of the individual, it's hard to do. It's hard to get that time set aside to do this thing where there's so many politics involved and who works on what and how it all comes together and who does the editing and who's recording what and like I said, aligning times. It becomes a massive issue to the point where the personal channels suffer, and this conglomerate channel that you're suggesting doesn't actually get much done in the process anyway. So I think in the end, while it's cool to see it, it doesn't actually work that well in practice. You need to set up a conglomerate channel as your initial channel, and then you can do individual channels off that. That's a lot easier to do, because then you already have everything in place, and everyone's kind of going to work on their own side projects as passion projects. Whereas right now, everyone's already got their passion projects on their channels, and you're trying to force their passions all into the same place, and then it can just cause so many issues. What's it called? I mean, that's it. That's kind of just the answer to the entire thing. So yeah, thanks for the question. All right, number 16. Hello, Hatman. It's been a long time, so I have a second ask bonus of kidding, no bonus. Them's rules. I respect it. So I come with a very strange question that I feel like I don't see asked enough. Why can't I see my own numbers? Oh, why don't you have your own personal parser? Oh no, why can't you see your own dots? Oh god, did I hate that? I think that's one of the big things. So Summoner, we talk about how it's okay. It just has a lot of things that make it kind of not fun to play for a lot of people. For me, the fact that you don't see your own dot damage is one of the most unsatisfying things about Summoner since its launch. I love seeing dot damage ticking every few seconds. And yes, if you squeeze in, you can see the dot number, but it's everyone's all put together. It removes a lot of the feeling of like, oh, I understand my damage right now. It's the same with any dot in the game, really. You just don't understand your damage as well when your damage is just pulled together with everybody else's for dots and it's all shown at once. You lose that satisfaction. That's just a fact, and I really don't like it for any job. It's just, I don't know. I could go on about it, but whatever. That's it. Yeah. And let me see if there's anything else in the question. I think I just got a beard hair in my mouth, so I'd love to be done with this question right now. I mean, that's among other issues, but I don't know. They've just done it since the beginning. I don't know why they decided to do it that way. It was probably easier to do it that way, and I would love for them to change it one day. So yeah, I completely agree. All right, number 17. Hey, happy start of the game in January, and your videos have been a lifesaver. So much thanks. Anyway, this is my first question, so I have a bonus of a Blitzball mount. I'm going to take that cannon from before, and I'm going to launch that mount right back in your face. No, but really, this bonus is no Blitzball. And 14, anyway, my question for you is the other day I was looking at stats and saw that the int was a stat that went into tank damage now. I think that's just for... That's just for Dark Knights. I'm pretty... No, is that... No, does int work on Dark Knight damage? Does it? It does, doesn't it? It's kind of like how spell speed works on Flash and Abyssal Drain and Unleash and Unmend. It's like, really? You couldn't just... You couldn't just make it not spell. You couldn't just make those things skill speed. You had to make them spells. Like, I understand it, but like, come on. You couldn't just make Holy Spirit and Flash scale on a stat that the job actually has on its gear. You couldn't do that. Really? I don't know. I don't know anything about intelligence working on that. I just, int goes into Holy Spirit as well. There you go. That's it. It's not on any of your gear, but it's there. So that's it. That's all it goes into. All right, number 18. Happy howdy, Mr. Happy. So watch your Octopath video. So Primrose, XIV Dancer from that is not in any way relatable to each other. Question for the Mr. Happy Roulette. The strongest icon. I'm kind of curious to click on that one because I want to see if you actually know what an icon is. Future, past environment. I'm going to take that first one. So in 11, Diabolos was the master of the dream world. And in 15, Carbuncle is... Speaking of carbuncles, who even NPCs in 14 summon and treat perfectly safe and no one bothers with Carby Eggy. Suspiciously, any thoughts on Carbuncle's true significance of 14? He has no significance. That's the sad truth about Carbuncle, is he actually has no significance in 14. He's literally like the beginner's pet for an Arcanist. And there's no sort of significance past that. I know in 11 he's also the beginner pet, but like he's not significant in any way. He's not like this insanely like powerful being that's able to bestow his form fully on. No, he's super not significant, and maybe they'll do something one day. And 14 doesn't really have a dream world because Diabolos is a void demon. He's not a master of the dream. They're not relatable, basically. The 11 and 14 arcs have no relation to each other, and you should never take any of the arcs between the two games as relatable to each other. At number 19, howdy, Mr. Happy. Why do people just adding howdies? That's going to be the new thing. Second time poster, long time viewer, but it's been nearly a year since your last post. So here's a bottle of magic color change. I'm colorblind, so I don't know why you're giving me something that changes colors, because at least it's not Blitzball. You have a point. A series of quick questions. Can ACT plugins be trusted? Yes, you can trust them on your PC. Just keep in mind not to talk about them in-game, because that's the only way they can punish you for using them. Which turns of coils are your favorite? For 1 through 13, Ultimate. Hasn't even come out yet. Already my favorite. Turn 8, Savage would be my favorite. Is Omega really a raid? They call it one. It's a raid based. They're using raid to describe difficulty in this sense, which doesn't make sense because there's 24-man raids, 8-man normal raids, 8-man savage raids. So they call it raid. They just do. It doesn't feel like one, I agree. I still like it when raids are all in one instance, and that's something I'll always wish for and want and will never get. Is Octopath just a Saga game? So a lot of people said it has some similarities to Saga Frontier, which is not a game I've played. That being said, it's not just a Saga game, but it definitely has the inspirations of a Saga game and the whole different characters, different stories. They can all interact with each other in their own stories, etc., etc. But it also pulls certain aspects from what feels like the Persona series with the breaks, as well as Bravely Default with the BP system. Although it works, I like it a little bit better in Octopath than sacrificing 4 turns in Bravely Default to not do anything, to just do it again. But it doesn't. I'm sure there are systems that aren't in Saga, or that are in Saga that aren't there, so probably not on purpose, but it definitely has at least that somewhat feel to it in some degree. And which you want more, Blue Mage or Beastmaster? I'll take Beastmaster. Blue Mage everyone wants, and I'm still of the opinion that it's going to be really weird when and if and when it's finally done. So Beastmaster, I see it being a lot easier to accomplish in a sense. And I feel like it could be interesting. Just, again, not like Final Fantasy 11. Alright, number 20. Hello, Mr. Happy. It's that monk kid who jumped the potion again. Here to ask a tiny question. For a tiny question, that's a lot of text. And to give you an update on the advice. But first, have an ice cream or whatever your favorite meal is. Dude, I could go for a fucking steak right now. Hashtag demonetized. Anyway, the update is simply this. I've been mashing on the 01 Savage Dummy, and I changed my melds from crit to direct hit 40s. And I can beat the 01 Savage Dummy with 5 seconds spare. I know it's still low as my item level is 323. I should be finishing it to me way faster with his progress. I continue to punch the dummy, which by the way I can clear 9 to 10. Okay, so thank you for your tips and advice. So last question says, tried Dark Knight tank, got mine 318, leveling Astro. My question is, I said started healing, I should worry about my performance on. I was worried about my Dark Knight, no one complains when I tank, and I love it when I try to pull more. My Astro is on the other hand getting complaints to try to DPS and heal and use the cards, but it seems like I'm getting tanks who like to die a lot. I swear I'm healing them the best I can, but nothing seems to make people happy. I feel like I'm trying to do too much, but I want to stop trying to DPS, and I'm standing around. You'll get mad at that too. It's currently level 66, trying to find a hard time to push and don't give up, and so I can train myself, not mess up as much. Literally, you're just asking me something that has a one-word answer. Practice. 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 The same thing I told you when you asked about Monk. If your tanks are dying, by the way, when you're healing, probably focus more on healing first then. Every dungeon I do, I check to see what kind of tank I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a tank that does big pulls, that doesn't know how to rotate cooldowns. I'm not getting any DPS out there, and I'm not going to force myself to. If I get the tank that's properly rotating cooldowns and properly taking care of themselves and pulling all the... I'll still be able to pull some DPS out. Just, your job is to heal first. Just, you DPS, you learn to DPS when you're sure your tank isn't going to die. Don't try to do everything out the gate. It's going to lead to a disaster. Also, in this terms of Astro, make sure not to just stare at your cards too long. Don't be like, hold on, tank. Just pop a cooldown. I'm trying to figure out how I want to use this card. Don't be that guy either. Try not to do that. All right, number 21. Hello, Mr. Happy. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? You're doing alright. Here are my questions. 1. Getting close to 4.1, do you think the objective of lowering the DPS gap between casual and hardcore players has been achieved? On some jobs, yes. On other jobs, it's been made even worse. For Warrior, before the fix, it was definitely worse. After the change to the beast gauge not disappearing, when you switch forms, that probably helped, but Summoner, man. Summoner. Black Mage is probably about the same. Black Mage always has issues because people struggle with properly maintaining where they want to be or positioning themselves properly. That's kind of just always been a thing, and that's one of the reasons why Bard got so much trouble when they added the cast times to it. Other jobs, though? I don't know. I see people... The thing is, the bigger the numbers get, like, for example, doing like 4 to 5k DPS right now, which is what most people are doing if they're playing properly. When you get to the larger your numbers get, the larger the differential looks. So unfortunately, I couldn't give you a percentage difference. Like, for example, if you have a samurai that does 2800 and they have a samurai that does 5000, you know, that's approaching, you know, 600 DPS away from doubling their DPS. But then you could think about back when DPS was like closer to 1000 and you had people doing, you know, 400. And it's like, the percentage-wise, technically the 400 percentage-wise is worse compared to the 1000 than the 2800 is compared to the 5000. And that's a little bit of hyperbole, even, in a sense. So it's about gauging percentage differences, and I don't have that information handy. I think it probably has been lowered to some degree, but not by a huge percentage. The people who still don't want to research their jobs or play their jobs properly are probably not finding it easy enough to do it. They're getting by, but they're definitely not reaching... they're not closing the gap by that much. It's probably like a 5 to 10% difference at most, when the difference was still like 40% between the top and the lower end. So that's what I think, but I don't have any data or information to back that up, and I would need to look over months of it. I don't have that. And this is the last question on the forums. Hello, Happy. Hope you're having an awesome week. Now for my questions this week, I got just two. Pick whatever theme you prefer. Savage Loot Lock and aggro management. I'm not a tank, so I don't know that I should talk about aggro management. I'm a monk, and I love to pull aggro. Maybe I can talk about it. Let's see. Question number 1. So, Savage Loot Lock. Now that SE seems to constantly be adding crafted gear weapons at the start of new tiers that are better than the previous tier gear, it seems to have devalued the worth of being BIS with the current raid tier and going into the new one. So, that value is being somewhat rectified for people who give a crap about Ultimate. Because if you don't have that option, you're not going to get 340 crafted gear when the Ultimate patch comes out. You're going to have whatever you got from the raid. And that seems to be one of the major purposes of Ultimate, is adding value to gearing up prior to 4.1 and then giving you a reason to gear up after 4.1 to eventually take it on before 4.2 actually comes around. That being said, I do understand. I don't ever feel... Before Ultimate, I didn't feel motivated to be BIS because I knew I was going to replace it all with crafted gear in the next patch. But it's sometimes nice to just have that gear from before. If you're not going for World First... Honestly, I'm probably not going to go out of my way to get crafted gear every patch, unless it's accessories, maybe, when I already have full 340 and a 345 weapon. Like, I might get the right side stuff and that's it, because, you know, basically it's 3 mils worth of difference on each, and if I'm not going for World First, do I really care? Do I really care to do that? No, probably not. So right side stuff is probably the only stuff I would replace, so there you go. And you don't need any you don't really need any crafted, it's just really great on week 1. For people who want to beat everything on week 1, and that's it. So, it is what it is. You know, I don't feel like it devalues it that much, but I do totally get what you're saying. You're not as excited because you could just replace it with the gear at the very start of the next patch if you wanted to. As for the aggro management question, been the topic of discussion with a couple of friends. Do you think they should probably rethink their approach to skills such as Shirk or Shadewalker? It feels like now more than ever, the great majority of groups, even the less skilled ones, refuse to run without a ninja. So yeah, people really take absolutes instead of kind of just learning to play. It's like, yeah, I don't have a ninja, so I have to do this one thing differently. You know, it still comes down to Shirk Voke is one of the biggest things right now when it comes to aggro management, which is why I love 04 Savage, because 04 Savage is such unique enmity rules that basically means you can get away with anything because of all the Grand Crosses resetting your aggro. I love 04 Savage's aggro management. It's the most interesting form of aggro management we've ever had. And it's one of the most overlooked aspects about the fight in terms of how interesting it actually ends up being. So, I do think that maybe Shadewalker is a bit... People value it, like, really high. And it's for good reason, but... It's valued really high, but it doesn't help that they have Trick Attack, they have Shadewalker, they have Shirk, and obviously they have all their other utilities in the roll actions. So, the fact they have Trick Attack and Shadewalker is what really does it. The enmity control on top of Trick Attack. If they just didn't have Trick Attack, I guarantee you people aren't going to go, well, Shadewalker's clearly value. And if you don't have Shadewalker, people aren't going to be like, well, this Trick Attack's not value. But when you have both of them on the same job, it's crazy. It's crazy. And, yeah, it's having both of them is what really kind of pushes their enmity tools to being considered OP. It's not them on their own. It's when in conjunction with what the rest of the job has. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. They may need to rethink how valuable that skill is. But anyway, that's the last question we have over on the forums. I've got time for 1 or 2 Twitch questions, so let's get to those right now before I shout out our sponsors. All right, so I answered a ton of questions on the Twitch side of things that just didn't make it into the video. So I'm going to grab these 2 questions. I have one from Cyber Goblin. I have one from Remy here. So let me grab Cyber Goblins first. 1, do you ever feel burned out with streaming as a whole? And if so, how do you deal with it? The only time I feel burned out of streaming is when I feel like I'm on a downward trajectory. Right now is actually one of those times, and it's kind of expected. People go back to school. People are finishing up summer. So September is usually like one of the dippiest times when it comes to streaming because of that, until people get into their routines and move in. Summer is like always a high point in streaming. So it's always coming off of summers where it's like, oh man, it's not like I'm struggling. It's just that it's like not a great time of year when people are all going back to their responsibilities and stuff like that. So that's the only time. Other than that, it could be what I'm streaming. Like maybe I really want to finish a game, but people aren't watching me play it. And then it's like, well, I'm conflicted here as the gamer. I want to do this. And I know people like to give that advice where it's like, oh, just play whatever you want. You know, it's your stream. You should play whatever you want. You can't always do that when you when you do it as a living. You kind of need to play to both sides. You got to play what you want, but you got to play it within reason. So that's about the only thing. Those are about the only 2 scenarios I could think of. Is when you're coming off of a high like summer, it could be very demotivating. And I kind of had that with like the other day when I was super exhausted and tired. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to take a day. I just need a day to reset. Or when you really want to play a game, but it's not a game people want to watch play, that's the other struggle. That's super demotivating. So those are the 2 times where you get burned out from streaming, but you usually overcome them. You just need to kind of press through and kind of analyze the situation and not take it super personally. And the other question is also content creation related. How often do you talk to other YouTubers you've worked with offline, or is it mainly on an online basis? Most of the time it's at PAXs. Like, or at major conventions, I'll like go and talk to them in person. But other than that, it's like the occasional Twitter conversation, or like, you know, I'll talk to Mary or Ethis or Sly behind the scenes, like if there's something that we want to talk about, or like before we go live with pre-show or stuff like that. But honestly, a lot of the time, I'm just kind of wrapped up in either playing a game. Like, I've been obsessed with Divinity lately. Like, I'm over 25 hours in. I don't know the exact number of hours. And I've just, like, that's been delaying my video making because I'm just like, oh, Divinity is so good. And it is. It's really good. I want to do a video about my opinion of the first 25 hours of it, to be honest. And I'm just going to just record as I play because I don't want to take time away from playing it. And then sometimes I forgot what I was even talking about. Or yeah, it's more like mostly like talking like friends, like taking, or like a work like combo. Yeah, that's how it comes up being. It's mostly about like PAX conventions or stuff like that, and or just talking about things that I've been working on lately. So those are really the only times I ever get to speak, because most of the time I'm just working on videos in general. That was the point I was trying to make. If I'm not working on videos, if I'm not streaming, then maybe if I have some time, but it's pretty rare. I try to fill my schedule as much as possible with whatever it is I got going on right there. Those are the only 2 questions that I'm going to be taking from the Twitch chat. I answered a bunch, and I'm still answering them. Like, I usually hang out for a few minutes afterwards. So thank you for watching this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Before we go any further, we have our weekly sponsor shout out. Now, I want to say we had a bunch of people pledge last week. Thank you to those of you who did. A lot of you, I don't have your names. I don't just take the name off of Patreon. Some people use their real names, and you know, it's not everyone's comfortable having their real name used online. So if you are someone pledging and you pledge and you're wondering why you're not being shouted out here, send me a message on Patreon and I will take care of it. I'll even send some personal messages to those people before State of the Realm, because those are names that go on both, and it's the same deal for both. So we have our standard sponsors, our elite sponsors, and our premium sponsors. We have, for our standard sponsors, Fafarian, Rendil, Giraffeswillrule, and Stevie-Rex. Then we have our elite tier sponsors. We have Kira Ryoshi, Ignis Fairgun from the Diabolos server, Goetia Valefar of Siren. We have Jean-Francois, my favorite name to say, Themacholuis, Hersh Fersh of Faerie, Phoenix Down Free Company on Goblin, Obai Dal Shamsi 2, and Serren from Zodiark. And then for our premium tier, actually, there's a name there that might be missing because I'm looking at, let me just make sure. I'm making sure all the names are there. Yep. Okay. And then we have, for our premium sponsors, we have TinColossus, we have Khuja Cross from the Jenova server, we have Nadien, whose name I almost forgot because they're on the State of the Realm list and not the other one. NadienKirisame is on that list. We have Ahmed Kurenai Abdullah, we have Killerhackman, we have Raul Jr, Darklight2013, Arthur Ramil Gaming Bishop, and Kiltastic Jones, who, as you saw earlier, asked the question. Let me make sure there's no missing overlap between the two, and I think we are good. I like to check my emails real quick and see if there was like a message that was missed or something like that. Because, well, you know. Oh, I think there is one. I think we have this person right here. Yes, we had another standard pledge in that of Argoti. That was the name that they asked to be called by. Argoti, that was another standard tier pledge that I almost missed, so I'm glad that I decided to go ahead and check that out. But anyway, those are all the sponsors. Thank you again if you're pledging to the channel and you don't have, and I don't have a name you want to be displayed. That's why your name hasn't been called out here, so go check that out and message me on Patreon. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to leave a question thread in the description. Go there, ask them for next week, and then the following week, we'll be able to talk about the live letter, because it's not this Friday, it's Friday after, because I'm an idiot. It's League of Legends that starts this week, not the live letter. 2 L's, you know, on both, so it is what it is. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, hang out with my chit chat for a few more minutes. Thank you everyone for hanging out. I will see all of you fine, ladies and gentlemen, on YouTube next week and Twitch. I'll hang out for a few minutes, and until next time, take care.